was 13, I lived in my dad's basement. He traveled a lot for work, sometimes leaving me alone for a week or so at a time. At first, it was kind of cool having the house to myself, but after a while, the quiet started to get to me. One night in early spring, I was up late watching TV. It was around 2 a.m., and I had the basement windows open because it was one of the first warm nights of the year. The windows were just those little ones near the ceiling, but they let in a lot of sound. That's when I heard it. Footsteps outside. Not just one set, but two. They were coming from the front of the house, moving along the side, and then stopped in the backyard. It did not hit me right away, but suddenly I realized that from the outside, anyone could see right into the basement because I had all the lights on. But with the lights on, I could not see outside. They could be standing there, watching me, and I would not know. I panicked. I turned off the TV and all the lights, plunging the room into total darkness. I was frozen there, standing in the middle of the basement, heart pounding. I was sure someone was out there, just beyond the windows. I don't know how long I stood there like that, but after a while it got quiet again. No more footsteps, nothing. I convinced myself that maybe I imagined it. So I decided to go upstairs and see if I can get a better look into the backyard. At least the lights upstairs were already off, so I wouldn't give away my position. When I reached the living room, I realized there were a lot of places in the yard I could not see because of the bushes and the patio umbrella. The worst part, the blind spots were exactly where it sounded like the footsteps had stopped. I thought about calling 911, but my dad would find out, and I knew he'd make me stay with my aunt the next time he went out of town. I did not want that. I hated the idea, so I just stood there for a good 10 minutes, staring into the backyard, trying to see if anything moved. Nothing did. I started to feel stupid, like maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, for some reason, I decided to go outside, maybe to prove to myself that there was nothing to worry about. I grabbed an old shepherd's axe that my dad kept by the door and went out the front, circling around to the side of the house, trying to stay quiet. I crouched behind a bush, axe in hand, and just stared into the darkness, my breath shaky. I don't know what I was expecting, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there. Finally, I gathered my nerve, swung the axe into the bush, and yelled, "Hey!" I was half expecting to scare myself and laugh it off. But then I heard it. Deck chairs scraping on wood, and 2 sets of footsteps running away fast. I felt my stomach drop. My legs were jelly. Somehow I managed to run back around the side of the house and get inside. I slammed the front door behind me and just stood there, leaning against it, gasping for air. I peeked through the windows, expecting to see someone sprinting away, but the yard was empty. That's when it hit me. I wasn't safe in the house. I was trapped. Without thinking, I flung the door open and ran into the middle of the street. My heart was still racing, and I thought about screaming. But then I saw them. 2 figures walking down the street, about a block and a half away. They were moving fast, but not running. I froze, watching them as they turned the corner and disappeared onto the main road. I should have called the cops, but instead, I did something really stupid. I ran after them. I don't know what I thought I'd do if I caught up, but when I turned the corner, there was no one there. They were just gone. They must have had a car waiting. That's the only explanation I have. I never told this to my dad. I never told anyone, but I've never forgotten it either. I was house sitting for my parents while they went on vacation. And let me tell you, their house is in the middle of literal nowhere. The closest neighbor is about a mile away, and it's surrounded by dense woods. They'd taken their dogs with them to the beach, so the place was dead silent. It was the kind of quiet where you don't want to turn off the TV, because as soon as you do, all you hear is your own breathing. No cars, no crickets, just you and the unsettling silence. Anyway, one night it was especially dark outside. No moon, no stars, just pitch black. I went out on the back porch for a quick smoke before bed. It was around midnight, and the woods were so quiet, it felt like they were holding their breath. I don't know how else to explain it, but something about that night just felt off. Still, I figured it was just the usual creepiness that comes with being alone in the woods. So I stepped off the porch and reached for my pack of cigarettes. I was at the bottom of the steps when I flicked the lighter. The small flame barely lit up the area, but in that split second, I saw something. And I don't mean like a shadow or a blur. I mean I saw something big, and it was only a few feet away. In that brief moment of light, I realized I wasn't alone. There was something massive, covered in brown hair, right next to me, eating out of one of the dog's bowls by the porch steps. This thing was huge, easily twice my size, and it wasn't just big, it was built. I did not get a good look at its head, but the torso was broad and muscular, covered in long, filthy hair. It didn't look like anything I'd seen before. Not a bear, not a dog. Nothing made sense. I stood there, frozen, my brain trying to catch up with what my eyes were looking at. Then it let out this deep, guttural grunt, like something you'd hear from a horror movie. That sound made my blood run cold. My legs wanted to bolt, but I couldn't move. A second later, it turned and ran into the woods, shaking the ground as it did. I could feel the porch vibrate under my feet as it plowed through the trees. Then there I was, standing in total darkness, cigarette still unlit, completely paralyzed with fear. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Eventually I snapped out of it, sprinted back inside, and locked every door and window in the house. I turned on every single light, like that would actually do something, and went to the most interior room I could find. I sat there for hours, just trying to calm down, but my mind kept running wild, imagining that thing coming back to break through the door. I stayed awake the rest of the night, jumping at every creak the house made. I did not sleep for the next 2 nights either. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to rationalize what I saw, but nothing added up. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. That thing was real, and it was huge. I started to think it might have been some kind of monster or cryptid, something out of a nightmare. The woods around my parents' place are dense and old. Who knows what could be out there, right? Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I finally talked to my parents about it when they got back. My dad just laughed and told me there'd been reports of giant feral hogs in the area. Apparently, some of them had been wandering onto their property, looking for food. I looked it up, and sure enough, these things can get massive, like ridiculously big. So, no monster, no cryptid, just a giant, overgrown feral pig rooting around for a snack in the middle of the night. But I'll be honest with you, even knowing what it was, I still get chills thinking about that night. Those woods just aren't right. Something about the silence out there feels wrong. I've never really been the type to scare easily. especially when it comes to being alone. My parents own a beach house, and I've spent a lot of nights there by myself. They're real estate agents and were away showing a house in another state. I was home alone, just enjoying the quiet, watching YouTube videos with a thunderstorm rolling in. The news had been warning about potential flooding, but I did not care. Storms on the coast are common, and I've been through worse. It was around midnight when things got weird. I was sitting on the couch, zoning out in front of my laptop when my cell phone rang. Nothing unusual, except the caller ID said it was our home phone. I froze for a second. I know for a fact that I was the only one home, so why was my home phone calling me? At first, I thought it was some sort of glitch. Maybe it was storm interference messing with the lines. But then it hit me. If my home phone was calling my cell phone, that meant someone had to be inside the house, using it. I went cold, like my brain could not process it. My heart started racing, and I just stared at my phone like it was some kind of cursed object. Then the thunder outside got louder, rumbling through the walls, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something even worse. The front door was wide open. I jumped up so fast I knocked over my drink. I ran to the front door and slammed it shut. There was rain pouring in, and I swear, for a split second I saw wet, sandy footprints leading inside. But with the wind and rain blowing in, I couldn't be sure. Terrified that some intruder may be in the house, I locked the door, trying to convince myself that I was just seeing things. Before I could even catch my breath, my cell phone rang again. It was the house phone again. I lost it at that point. I did not want to answer it, because what if I heard someone's unknown voice on the other end? I grabbed my phone and called my parents, crying and barely able to speak. They told me to stay calm and that they'd call the police for me. I locked myself in the bathroom with a knife and waited. They said it would be a bit longer than usual because of the storm. When the police arrived, they did a full sweep of the house and the area around it. Nothing. No signs of anyone inside or around the property. When they looked at my house phone, nothing seemed odd about it. It was in its phone base sitting in the kitchen, seemingly untouched by an intruder. The officer was nice though. He offered to patrol the block for the rest of the night, just in case. I thanked him, but it did not make me feel any better. I ended up sleeping in the bathtub with the door locked and the knife in my hand. I was terrified to even close my eyes. The next morning, everything was fine. No more weird calls, no footprints, nothing out of place. My parents ended up coming home early because they were worried about me. Now, I try to avoid being home alone at all costs. I try to at least be at a friend's house, or have one of them come be with me. I was 17 years old when this happened. My parents had gone out of town from Thursday to Sunday, and I was left alone with our dog, Max. He was getting old at that point, a small dog, and had trouble climbing the stairs. I'd be working in the mornings, so it was just me and him at night. Nothing weird about that, though. We'd done it plenty of times before. Friday afternoon, I come home from my shift, walk into the kitchen, and the table is a mess. Napkins are scattered all over the place. The mail is dumped on the floor. The salt and pepper shakers are across the kitchen, but still together, and one of the chairs is pushed way out from the table. Now, Max was old, and he's never done anything like this. I'd be shocked if he even had the energy to get on top of the table. let alone throw stuff around. But hey, it's weird, so I clean it up, reset everything, and move on. Saturday rolls around. Same routine. Work in the morning, home in the afternoon. I walk into the kitchen, and it's the exact same scene. Napkins, mail, salt and pepper, chair pulled out. It's all identical to the way it was the day before. Now I'm starting to get a little freaked out. There's no way Max could have done this twice. Not in the exact same way. He's barely mobile, let alone destructive. I take a few pictures of the mess just because it's so strange. That night, I'm convinced there's something else in the house. It doesn't make any sense otherwise. I did not sleep well at all. Kept thinking I heard footsteps or something worse. Every creak or noise made me jump. I was so tired by the time I got up for work on Sunday, but I had to push through. Before I leave for work, I make sure everything is perfectly in its place in the kitchen. Napkins back in the holder, mail stacked neatly, salt and pepper in the center of the table, chairs tucked in. I leave knowing my parents would be home by the time I got off work. During my lunch break, I call my mom. I ask her if she noticed anything strange when they got back. She responds, "Yeah, why did you leave such a mess?" I asked her what she meant, and she described the kitchen exactly like I found it the past 2 days. Napkins everywhere, mail scattered, salt and pepper on the other side of the room, chairs pulled out. She did not take pictures, but she was definitely confused by it. I couldn't believe it. That mess had happened 3 days in a row, and Max was the only one home with me. I don't think he could have pulled a chair out if he tried. And climbing on the table, no way. It was like something or someone was messing with me. But it never happened again after that weekend. I still don't know what caused it. Never had anything remotely paranormal happen to me before or after. But I'll never forget how that kitchen looked those 3 days. I was home alone pretty recently, and I was upstairs playing video games when I heard a dog whimpering coming from the kitchen, which is right at the bottom of the stairs. I figured it was my dog, Bella, needing to go out. So I called her name and asked if she wanted to go outside. Instead of heading downstairs, though, she ran up toward me. She looked off, like she'd just been scolded or something. But Bella's a timid dog, so I did not think much of it at the time. I shrugged it off and finished up the last few minutes of my game, planning to let her out afterward. But then I heard the same whimpering again. Problem was, Bella was sitting right next to me. I glanced down at her, and she seemed confused too. But I thought maybe it was just me hearing things. Then, another whimper. Bella was still beside me, but this time, the sound that followed made my blood run cold. It wasn't a dog's whimper, at least not anymore. It sounded like a person trying to imitate a dog, but it was wrong. Like someone who didn't quite know how to make the sound properly. That's when I started to freak out. I did not know if there was an intruder downstairs, or someone screwing with me or what. My first rational thought was, maybe my uncle had come over with his dog, and they were playing in the kitchen. But the more I thought about it, the more that did not add up. And while I was trying to reason it out in my head, the noises continued. A dog's whimper, then the human sound, back and forth, almost like a conversation. I grabbed a knife from my desk and started moving toward the top of the stairs, trying to stay quiet. Bella followed, but she was shaking, her ears pinned back. She never gets that scared unless something's really wrong. Just as I reached the top step, the sound stopped. The only thing I heard was one last muffled whimper, but this time, it came from upstairs, from behind me. It sounded like it was coming from the corner of the hallway, almost too faint to hear, but clear enough to freeze me in place. I swear, I almost pissed myself right then. I did not go downstairs after that. Instead, I locked myself in my room with Bella and kept the knife by my side the rest of the night. Here's the kicker. This isn't the first weird thing that's happened with Bella lately. Over the past month, she's gone missing in the house 4 times. I'm not talking about her running outside or getting lost in the yard. I mean full-on disappearing inside the house. We tear the place apart looking for her, my mom even getting the neighbors to help, and then we suddenly hear her crying from a closet upstairs. Each time, she's been locked inside. But it's worse than that. The last time it happened, we checked the closet first, since that's where we always find her. The door was open, and she wasn't there, so we kept searching. About 10 minutes later, we heard her crying again. When we went back upstairs, she was locked inside the closet. No one had gone up there. The door had been open, and then it wasn't. We have no way to explain this. Hey, what's up guys? It's Spooky. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you survived. If you did not know, I have an Instagram. Follow me on there so we can connect. I also have a Patreon. On there you'll have direct access to me and can see the upcoming videos, polls, and soon-to-be exclusive stories only shared on there. If that's something that interests you, please consider joining. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Stay spooky and I'll see you in the next video.